trafficking, you probably think of someone being kidnapped in a parking lot and shipped overseas where they are then forced into life as a sex worker, meaning it could never happen to your own child or in your own backyard. My guests today are here to tell you that that idea couldn't be further from the truth. Mary Trapnell, founder of Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition, and Christina Meadows, a survivor of sex trafficking, are here today to share their message and their story, and most importantly, how we can prevent this from happening to our own daughters. Christina shares her story of years and years of working in the sex industry after falling prey when she was just a teenager. How did she cope all those years? Why did she stay? And how did she finally escape? Spoiler alert, it had a lot to do with Mary, founder of NAHT. I asked Mary to break down the steps these traffickers go through to lure young girls and boys out of their homes and onto the streets. Where are they contacting these kids and what do they say? How do they trick them into believing that this is a good idea? It is every parent's worst nightmare, and our hope with this episode is that it can help you know the signs to look for, who is most at risk, and what to do if this happens to someone you know. So, without further ado, let's get to it. Here's my conversation with Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Well, welcome to the podcast. I have Christina Meadows and I have Mary Trapnell, and they are from Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. I tried not to look at my notes when I just said that. I'm very excited to have you here today because I know it's a topic that is very hot in like the news and social media. And we have a lot of information to get to, which I'm going to do in a second. But I first want to read everyone your mission statement, because I thought that this was just kind of laid it all right out there. Your mission statement of NAHT is to rescue and restore women and children from the bondage of human trafficking and addiction. I'm going to ask you to explain all about that, but I first want to start with when I first came to see you guys about a month ago, I had a very kind of one-sided vision of what human trafficking looked like. And when I left your office, I had a very different vision. It's every parent's biggest nightmare. Can you tell us just a little bit about the actual act of human trafficking and what that looks like today in today's world?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. We're so thankful that you have had us on today because we're looking at a global crisis, a humanitarian crisis, where people and children, adults are being bought and sold at record levels. Yeah. And it's modern day slavery. And it's happening in every zip code across the globe.
Do you think people just not aware of how much it's happening, or are people aware? Like, by people, I mean like government, police.
Yeah, that's a great question. You know what? This industry thrives and does its best work because it is underground. It doesn't want to be exposed. And so a lot of the work that we are doing right now is trying to raise awareness and making sure that everybody really understands that it's here, it's active, and it's targeting every family.
Is it worse than it used to be?
Absolutely.
Because of?
So I think back on, the movie Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. Okay. And so Dolly.
I don't think I saw that.
She was way out in the country.
All right.
Right. And so to go out and buy services, you had to go way out, and it was sort of secretive, but it was that destination. Through the internet now, you can go on and buy a person for your own pleasure, just like you would go to Amazon and buy your groceries for the week.
It's like a website, easy. Or is this an app we're talking about?
Absolutely. There's all sorts of portals on the internet that you can go into, typically defined by the dark net. But now it's really showing itself in more common platforms. And you can go in and book services pretty much all day and all night.
So you don't mean you can buy a person that would come and live in your house. You mean go and buy a sexual act?
Exactly.
And then you just meet up somewhere and it's all done online. Okay.
It's all arranged and bought online.
Okay.
Well, so human trafficking isn't what you typically see on TV. So that you gotta take that blindfold off, or that misconception of the movie Taken or The Sound of Freedom. So human trafficking is happening right underneath your nose, and it doesn't look like snatch and grab and shipping people to another country, or people are buying kids from another country and they're shipping them here. While that does happen, and that is a very real thing, that's not typically how it looks in the States. It looks like grooming, brainwashing into the sex trafficking industry, into prostitution. And that is what we deal with mostly, primarily here in Nashville and in the States, which would be the sex trafficking industry / prostitution.
Okay. Well, and I think I was saying that to you guys too. I think because of social media and that movie Taken, when I thought of human trafficking, like I would say to my daughter when she's going to go to the mall, like, just be careful when you go to the mall because you don't want to like get grabbed. And you have this vision of, and I think a lot of moms of, well, as long as I can keep my daughter from, going out in public, basically, she's not going to get snatched and sent on like some sort of freight ship to another country where she's going to be sold into sex trafficking. And then I came to your place and realized that that is not at all how, I mean, does it ever happen like that? Or
it does.
Okay. But the commonly it's not like a snatch and grab. It's the grooming process.
Yeah. There was a movie called The Sound of Freedom that came out last summer that really kind of opened the door to even show, though, there's a scene where a father is taking his son and his daughter, young, to a photo session. And he thinks it's one thing, but it ends up being something completely different. Okay. So that when he comes back to pick them up, he realizes that they have been taken. But it was established primarily through trust. He had been sold a bill of goods. He trusted them and he took his children to them. And that's what made that movie so powerful.
Okay. I have not seen that movie. My husband saw it and my husband and one of my boys saw it. And they were like, you do not want to watch that movie. And I was like, no, I think I should. And they were like, I promise you don't want to watch it. When you watched it, is it like from what you've seen, is it pretty accurate?
It is. It did a great job of not exploiting the audience from our perspective. I mean, we talk about a lot of very difficult and hard things. And the movie really didn't push the needle there for the audience, but it did make the reality of the fact that trafficking is going on. It's a dark, dark industry, and it should be something that all of us are willing to say, we're going to fight against this industry and for its victims.
Yeah. And we were saying before we sat down that, everybody thinks it happens on, like what we were saying, like this island, like you hear of these stories and, in the news. And that's what gets the big press attention is when there's like these huge, huge rings like that are busted or something like that. But that really in North America, in the United States and in Canada, that it really is a mistake not to think it's happening in our own backyards. And as long as our kids have the internet and a phone, that it could be happening to them. I found this really, really interesting. And we're going to get to your stories, but I kind of wanted everyone just to go into this episode understanding the process of when somebody is looking at a young girl, because you said the primary age is what, middle school for the grooming, what that process looks like. Like, how do we prevent this as moms from happening to our daughters? Or if there's a father listening, how to prevent this happening? Like, what does that look like for a young girl who's sitting at home with a device in her hand?
Exactly. So there's 3 points of vulnerabilities that we've identified that make someone really susceptible, if you will, to being groomed by the industry. The one, first of which is a hard subject, but it's early childhood sexual abuse. Which really kind of causes young people to consider, like, what is my body and who's in charge of my body and who's responsible for my body? And then secondly, addiction. We know that it is a lot of people have a genetic predisposition to abuse. Okay. So when they have that first sip of alcohol or they take a medicine, it does something to their body. Okay. And that sets someone up to be vulnerable to this industry. And then a broken home. Where you have children in the home trying to, the covering and the protection that they've experienced is gone now. And they're open to looking for, say, a father figure or a mother figure or a family experience. And the human trafficking industry knows that. And so that's how they actually target our children.
And are they finding them? Like, is it like on Snapchat? Is it Instagram? How are they actually infiltrating these young girls? Is it just girls or is it sometimes boys?
It's both. It is absolutely both. Okay. Christina, maybe you could speak to that.
Okay. Repeat the question.
Well, I'm
Sorry.
just wondering if, so Mary has said like kind of who is at risk, like right off the bat. But so let's say the trafficker is like, okay, I've found someone and they're probably at risk. Like what are they actually then doing? Are they finding them on social media apps, or how are they actually finding these targets?
Well, so, and that is a way too. So, and when you're talking about, so middle school and high schoolers are the prime age for trafficking. And so what it kind of looks like is, friend groups, it's social media, it is gaming, it is
gaming.
Yes. So yeah.
What?
And
like
often
these people on the headsets that I hear my kids like talking to?
Yeah. And you build a relationship very early on through those gaming platforms. You guys people are, on quests, and they're on teams, and they're taking out the enemy, and they're talking together, and they're
like a camaraderie.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And they're bonding. And, as much as parents say, you're not supposed to talk to strangers, you have invited strangers into your home through various social media apps, TikTok, things like that, and those gaming sets, and it's become a place, because a lot of children now through internet are becoming very isolated, and they're spending a lot of time on their phones and a lot of gaming. So that is where they're beginning their friendships and building a trust. So it's there. It's like there have a commonality of pain, bad at my parents. And the person on the other end, you may not know. And it could very well be a kid who has a trafficker who is taught them to groom another kid. So it can very well be a kid. And it can also be an adult who is acting like a kid, both and.
Okay.
So the adults are sending kids out to game with other kids in order to build trust. And it's like, hey, you want to go meet? And, meet me at the mall. Let's go to the movies together. Let's do something. And now I have a friendship where I've been very isolated in this game. And now we've conquered the world together, and we've taken out all these enemies together. It's like, okay, so let's meet up and hang out. And so that's one way through that. And then you may have the trafficker behind the scenes for the kid, or you may have the trafficker who actually meets the kid. Maybe it's a younger guy, who is very relatable to a teenage boy, or a younger guy who is very attractive to a teenage girl, she's as well gaming, because girls are now on these gaming platforms. They are absolutely, and they're kicking tail, and it's nothing more than them getting against the boy and a girl beating a boy. And then they're building these relationships and friendships on gaming platforms as well.
Okay, so now I'm like, you're talking, and I'm just having like because I hear my son, who's 17, gaming all the time. And sometimes I'm like, who are you talking to? And he's like, mostly it's his friends, but sometimes they're these random, and I'm like, how do you even know who he's like, oh no, he's another high schooler. And I'm like, you don't know that, but they're so naive at that age. Okay. So
absolutely.
Let's say they have infiltrated through gaming, through Snapchat, TikTok, whatever it is they're on. Let's just say it's a boy and a girl, like a girl. And so he's identified that maybe she's angry at her parents or whatever. Then what is he saying? He's saying, let's meet up. That's the next step.
Well, no, it takes a while, because, kids are, a little cautious. Not always. Some are longing for friendship and will out the gate go ahead and meet up, especially if it is an attractive, and she may not be a very attractive young lady, right? And you've got this attractive boy, and he's ringing all her bells, and he's cute and all those things. So she may meet up with him and strike out and do that. But often it is a building of a relationship, a trust. There's a common bond. There is I'm upset with my parents, or I see you're a skater, and I like to skateboard myself. Or I see that you like this sport, or there's just something that they can see on their profile. So you're sharing a lot of things. And we all share stuff when we're sharing on what interests us. So a trafficker is looking for what interests. And if they can get in and have a common interest with someone that they're beginning to groom, they're building a friendship, they're building a trust. And then very, very quickly, once that has, there's a common ground, then the meeting is very easy. It's like after talk, even FaceTiming. So oftentimes it's like, I'm going to FaceTime this person to see if it's even a real person. So with technology, it's gotten smarter. The kids can see and have these conversations, do FaceTime, do Messenger on video. So now they've built a relationship, and we've already been talking on Messenger. We're video chatting. There's nothing wrong with him, or, and it's off to the races and meeting. And it's there very quickly that relationship will form, and a trauma bond is beginning to build. And, and upset with parents could be one thing, upset with teachers.
So that's a trauma bond. They're bonding over. So he is, in essence, pretending to have the same issue that she is having.
Yes.
Okay, so this makes me think of something, because there's that line of privacy and all that kind of stuff. How important is it that we are checking our children's phones on that line of giving them freedom, respecting privacy and boundaries? Do we need to be checking their phones?
So I would say, as a mom of 3 boys, how important it is to be aware of the ways that this industry can target our children. However, the greater gift, though, is to deal with your children's heart and begin helping define why trafficking itself would be wrong. And one of the things that we anchor at NAHT in is the fact that all people are made in the image of God, and it's there that value, worth, and dignity is established.
In your body.
Absolutely. You're made and fashioned by God, and it's not okay to buy and sell people made in his image. In fact, God has a real opinion about that. And so we have decided to take his opinion. And it's important, I think, though, in the day and age where we have, we're all so selfish. It's all about us. And social media kind of builds that ego, right? It's like, who am I? And what do other people think about me?
Right.
And I'm living in that space. So a trafficker comes into that and says, oh, you're beautiful. You're so wonderful.
Giving you everything you feel like you're missing.
You're missing, exactly, and that you need. And so they prey on that.
Well, and speak a little bit about what you were saying before of like girls who maybe find themselves in schools that don't have what the other girls have, like material wise, and that they'll offer them whether it's like fancy shoes or a handbag, and these girls are so desperate to fit in with what they believe all the other girls have. And is that part of the grooming process too?
Absolutely.
Okay.
As a friend of mine told me the other day, they're like, Mary, comparison is an indoor sport for women. We live and breathe on, oh my gosh, am I as pretty as she is, or am I as smart as she is, or am I as athletic as she is? And it's really hard, if you will, especially with social media, to really tap into the core identity of who you really are.
Right.
And until that message is really sent that you're beautiful no matter who thinks it, because God has said you are, and your mom and dad think you are. And, you want to build in an identity that's independent from all of those messaging.
Okay.
And that is step one. And for boys, it's the same thing, truly. It's like God has fashioned you to be a hero and to be a protector and a provider. And when you're exploiting girls and you're objectifying them through the use of pornography.
I was going to say, so when you say, because there could be a lot of moms going, well, my son is not a trafficker. My son's not a John. My son XYZ. But when you say exploiting, you mean watching pornography.
I do.
Right?
I think that's step one. It's the on-ramp. It's the gateway into the human trafficking industry.
Yeah. Because why? It makes it okay for them in their minds?
So pornography, and Christina can speak to this, is not a non-violent industry. It's a very violent industry, and it's people who are being paid, quote unquote, to have extremely perverted sexual activity.
Why do you say quote unquote with paid?
Well, because typically that money is not going to land in the person's hand.
Okay.
It may, but it goes to the trafficker.
Okay,
it does, or to someone else.
Okay, so trafficker and John, same type of person, different name?
Can be. Well, a John is in the industry someone who buys services.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Okay. Yes. A trafficker is the one who is actually running the business side of selling human beings.
Which, like in the movies,
services.
they would have called like a pimp.
A pimp.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a new name because pimp had become, actually, Puff Daddy has been in the news lately.
Yes, he has.
But a lot of music actually kind of glamorized what was the human trafficking industry. And so today, those of us who are in this space refer to it as trafficking because the pimp had kind of taken on a glamorous role, actually.
Okay. I remember hearing like a terrible statistic once of pornography and young kids and boys watching it. And I came home and I was like, John, the boys were young, like middle schoolers. And I said, John, I heard this terrible statistic today. And like, we have got to speak to them about this. And he's like, I've already talked to them about it, but we can have that talk again. And I was like, I know it's uncomfortable, but we need to have this conversation with them. And like, we just need to pick a time. He said, okay. So we're having dinner, we're finishing dinner, cleaning up. And he says, boys, your mother would like to speak to you about pornography. And I was like, oh, wait, not this moment. And they all kind of were like, okay. And he was like, so sit down. And I was like, wait, I think we're doing it together. He goes, no, you said, he's like, I've already talked to them. You said it. So it was, a little awkward, let's be honest. They're all like middle schoolish. And I had told them what I had heard and how, what a bad path you would go down. And John said, so, basically, if pornography ever comes your way, I just want you to think of your mom and your sister. And they were like horrified, looking like they're gonna like throw up at the table. And I was like, well, that'll do it. But that's what we were saying. Like that is someone's mom or someone's sister or someone's daughter. So I think what you're saying is,
and that's a great place to start. So if they can understand that those images are not just a fantasy, and it's not, these people don't exist for their pleasure, and they're actually real people. And like you said, they're possibly someone's mother, they're someone's sister, they're someone's girlfriend. Yeah.
Because is pornography,
it makes a difference.
Is that a big part of, if someone is in the human trafficking business, is like sending these girls out for sexual acts pretty much almost go hand in hand with like being in pornography? Do they usually go hand in hand, or is it two separate things if you're in the trafficking business?
It's common. Probably 90% of sex trafficking is video and pictures and pornography. You're doing both, and it just depends on who's paying what, and and how much they're paying. And what they've ordered up. It's like, it's very specific. It's, I want to make a video with you, and I'm going to negotiate this amount of money for a video so I can take it and have it.
So that's a service someone can buy.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
I want to go back to what you were saying when we were talking about the girls, like who feel like they don't have the same shoes or whatever.
Yeah.
And talk to me a little bit about OnlyFans for a second, because I didn't realize it was such would you call it a gateway into?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Oh, yeah. Christina, talk about gateway.
Or tell people what OnlyFans, do you know enough about OnlyFans to tell people what it is if they don't know? Because I am new to knowing what OnlyFans is.
Well, so it's a subscription service where you can, depending on the content provider, what a male or female is doing, it is a very safe, quote unquote, because it's not really safe.
It's not marketed as being pornography, though.
But it absolutely is pornography.
There's a lot of celebrities on there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
And there is, and it is a very legal way and a very safe way to sell sex and to sell pornography, pictures, content, and very quickly you can go, and it's a tool for grooming, hands down. And so very quickly you can go from taking pictures of your feet. So, a young lady had an opportunity, just like you were saying. So groomers can see, so like social media. I'm going to go back to social media for a second, and I'm going to tie it into this. So how you can do these Facebook things, and it's like, what house would you get? And you click on that game and it shows you what house you can get, or what shoes, or what would you look like, or your clothes, or different things, those games. And it's like, the kids are like, I wish, and they're starting to post all these things. And we do it as adults. Like, what could we look like? What clothes could we have? What house could we have? What car could we have on those little games? A trafficker, a groomer could see that, say, I can help you to get that. All I need is a picture of your feet.
Which seems so innocent to a 14, 15-year-old girl.
Absolutely. Feet, that's nothing. And, all you have to do is put red toenail polish on and a pair of high heel shoes, take a picture of feet, and I'll Venmo you $500.
Is someone actually, though, going on OnlyFans and paying $500 to see a photo of someone's foot?
Well, so it's subscriptions. They're paying money to subscribe to that person's content.
Oh,
so just like you would subscribe on YouTube to a podcast, you can subscribe to on OnlyFans for an amount to see something that someone who is providing. So and the more subscribers they have, the more money they make monthly, and they do little videos, they do all kinds of things too, especially on TikToks and YouTubes and different things to promote their OnlyFans.
Okay.
So they're using that as advertisement to get them over to their profile. And there are so many different apps out there where you can get content, not just on OnlyFans, not to mention the dark net. The dark net has a lot of different areas that you can get pornography and content. It's real easy, and it's flooding everyone's home. TikTok, Facebook Reels, you can watch those little videos and really be susceptible. So a young man, he's watching a video, like tell him the story about how the volleyball players, and and he stops for a few seconds. And so a young man's watching, and he's got these fine girls, and they're playing volleyball, and they've got shorts on, and then Facebook picks that up. The reel picks it up. The next one doesn't have as much clothes on. You've got girls in bikinis now playing volleyball. So it's grooming you to getting into a more deeper, and then it's like, okay, I want to see those girls naked now. How can I do that? And, moving into that. And then I can actually purchase content that is specifically designed for me at one of these places. And it is not a in-person thing. And then it's just one step away from saying, hey, I want to order that in person. I want to bring that experience, maybe not the same people, but I want to bring that experience to me personally in a hotel room here in Nashville.
And probably the young boy who first ever just looked at a picture of a foot or, God forbid, a picture of naked boobs, never saw himself going down a path that would lead to one day being a John.
Exactly. This is a business. It's a human trafficking industry. Yeah. It is a business that runs on supply and demand. So they are constantly trying to drive up demand and filling supply to meet the demand. Okay. So demand is demand for services, which is what you just beautifully described. And then the supply is how can we groom those girls and those boys to provide services for the demand.
Okay, so we now have the trafficker who has either met up with this young girl that he's been kind of grooming online with the trauma bonding, or got her to do the OnlyFans. How do we go from even just sending a photo on OnlyFans for this trafficker or meeting up for trauma bonding? How do we go from there to this girl now being part of a sex trafficking ring or organization? Like, it seems like such a huge leap, but I don't think it is, right?
So it's really not, because what she has done is she has slowly but surely compromised and cut deals with herself with what is appropriate to be for her body to be used for. So it's a slow process, and all of a sudden now, if she can make money on her body, why not? And if the dream is, and the pipe dream is to get that house and to have that man and to have this lifestyle at this point now, then if I can use my body to get it, then why not? And so the trafficker's got her exactly where he wants her.
And then also trust. Along the way, they have been building trust in a relationship. So he is pulling on her heartstrings into becoming her boyfriend. So now you're building a relationship. Oftentimes, traffickers, they want to present as a boyfriend, as a protection, as a covering. It's like, and now you're in it together with them. And so it is a business. And now we're able to build that house. We're able to get the car. We're able to have a lavish lifestyle. Well, he must really love me because I'm doing all this and he's still with me and he doesn't care. So really there's nothing wrong with it. He's saying it's okay. Society says it's okay. People are doing this all day, every day. Like the fact that an OnlyFans is even existing, society is saying it is okay for someone to subscribe to sex.
Because isn't it too, on OnlyFans, it can be like, okay, we'll pay $5 more and I'll pull my sleeve down, pay another $10 and I'll take my top off. Because I think it's like a tiered how it works, right?
It is. Absolutely. Yeah, it is. And it's, and so I can say not everybody on OnlyFans, but they're doing something to, is getting butt naked or doing, they're doing things, showing, they're dancing, they're doing different things, they're encouraging, they're selling sex. all means, and different tiers at different levels. Not everybody is doing the same content on OnlyFans. So, I mean, I don't want to just land there. I do want to say that it's multifaceted in that area, as well as it's not just in that area. This is happening inside your school systems. It is happening with the cheerleaders. Like, you could have cheerleaders who are...
All the cheer moms are like, what? Not my cheerleader. No. Not my cheerleader.
Well, so you have, say, okay, and this is an example. You have a head cheerleader. You've got some freshmen coming on. This head cheerleader has been in this, understands, that they can get the Gucci purse and the Louis Vuitton shoes, and they can have all these things. And they've already been cutting these deals, and they have somebody on the outside that's helping them with content. They need girls to bring some more content, fresh content. They get a cut of it. So they're bringing in, they're recruiting. They are recruiting new people. So they're telling the freshman girls, you can be like me. You can have what I have if you do what I do. And this is how I do it. And this guy's really cool. And I don't have to do anything sexual. So now you've desensitized. And now you've got a head cheerleader who is now going to grooming a freshman who is the head cheerleader now is desensitized, has gone all the way this way. When she gets out of high school and now she's in college, her bills are going to get bigger. Yeah. Things are going to get bigger. She's going to want more. She's going to want to keep up with the Joneses, so she's going to do more. And it's a very slim jump from taking the pictures to actually now doing it in person with somebody and, for the big bucks. And, I can tell you the girls of affluence, that families with money, that they go for the most. They've already got the nails done. They've been pampered. They've already...
Which I think most people would be surprised by you saying that.
They definitely would be surprised by.
So why the families who have the most, why are those girls attractive to them as like a target?
Well, so they already come with money.
Okay.
So they're on the first. So traffickers, the girls come with a certain amount of covering from the family. The families are usually giving them money. They're giving them allowances weekly. So drugs and sex trafficking, which we hadn't got into that. There's a party atmosphere with sex trafficking. So we've talked a lot about apps and the grooming process. So we'll talk a little bit about what it looks like in substance abuse. Drug trafficking and sex trafficking go hand in hand.
Always?
Always. 99.9% of the women that we serve have a substance abuse. They report using a substance either before, during, or after the time of trafficking. And so you want to buy an experience with a girl, which that local artist that is in the newspaper, music, girls, drugs, it's a big, it's an industry, right? And so you're bringing a party with the girl. So there's substances involved in that. So you're looking at a girl who parties, who hangs out in, and kind of my story. I'm a survivor of human trafficking. So a lot of this resonates as part of my story. And so what it kind of looks like is you're hanging out with friends, you're getting drunk, you're smoking pot, you're dabbling in some substances, and then it gets out of hand, and so the traffickers are bringing in both, they've got the girl in college who's got this allowance, who's partying in the local frat house and has access to money. She's spending money with him. He's got his eye on her. He sees a vulnerability for drugs. And if he can get her a little bit more wild and a little bit more dependent, and we can do this on a daily basis, she can then get addicted. Then he's got her. And then when the parents cut her off, now she has this raging habit. She wants the Christian Louis Vuitton shoes. She wants the purses. She wants all this. Needs to stay in college. Still has to do all these things. So now she's more susceptible to negotiating a price for her body in order to keep up the facade of what's going on. If any of that makes sense.
I mean, it does, and I think it's like it's just one of those things. Like as a mom, you don't ever. I mean, did you ever know anything like this existed when you were raising your kids, Mary?
Absolutely not. Yeah. No, I did not.
Because I'm going to get into Christina's story, but first, I want people to hear how you. I mean, this was what? How long did you go? 13 years ago?
13 years ago.
Okay. Your kids were grown.
They were.
To a point.
Yep. I had 3 boys. They were all grown. They were headed off. They were in jobs where they worked around the clock. And so we were empty nesters big time. And
never thought you would get into anything like this.
Never. Did
you even know it existed?
I mean, I did, but it was overseas in my mind. Yeah. Yeah, I was comfortable with hearing stories. Unfortunately, overseas, it was troubling, but it was over there. And it wasn't here. No. So when I heard that there were children that were living in a homeless camp off of the interstate.
In Nashville.
Yes, I-24.
Yeah.
That were being bought and sold to truckers at the truck stop.
This was 13 years ago.
This was 13 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I realized that this was a field that I had grown up riding horses in. Safe. It was a wonderful community.
That's where the truck stop was now.
Yeah,
in this field.
Absolutely. Okay. And this is where the children were living. And they were trafficking them at the truck stop. And it was just one of those things that really was deeply troubling, and I couldn't sleep at night. And I quickly said, we know people. We'll go out and we'll do something about this. This will not happen on my watch, right? And that's where God really humbled this little pistol packing Pete and said, pistol. This is much bigger than you know. And you better slow down just a little bit because it's going to be a big But even too journey. For you, just because there's a lot of women, people who see things every day, social injustices, things that kind of pull at their heartstrings, or they think this is terrible, I don't agree with it. But then they just go, but it's just too big of a problem. Like, what could little old me do? Yeah. But you didn't. You were like, okay, I mean, were you always like that? Like, did you have that kind of personality that you were like, see a problem? Yeah, Christina's laughing. She's like, that's a different podcast.
Yeah. No one was surprised that you took this on?
Probably not, but really I was afraid of my shadow at that point. I had a tremendous fear of even flying. I did not want to get on a plane. So it was really funny that God would take someone who was so marked by fear.
Rescue women all over the country.
That is going to go put her on the streets, going into trap houses and rescuing girls. So God gets all the glory for the work completely, every bit of it. But I will say, though, I understood, though, that God had made everyone, and that I deeply knew that this was wrong. I mean, there was no question in my mind that it was wrong. So I, began to just say, Lord, if you would use me at this stage in my life to make a difference, would you maybe send some of these victims to me, and maybe I could tell them how beautiful they were and how precious they were and how God had fashioned them into these stunning, stunning objects of glory for his sake, and that, we would believe maybe that God could redeem some of the pain and the suffering that they had been through.
So when did you first meet then your first victim, or what was your first encounter that you were like, okay, I'm going to turn this into an actual organization? Yeah.
So, I prayed and said, okay, where can I go serve? And I think this is something that your audience might want to know is that there are agencies probably in their community that are doing this type of work.
Okay.
And showing up is just step one. I mean, everybody goes, what can I do? What can I do? And we're like, just show up.
And when you say show up, what are you doing when you show up?
Yeah, get in your car and just go and say, hey, I want to hear about what you're doing.
Like Google it. Just Google near me.
Go on the internet and Google some agencies in your community.
Yeah.
And say, what is it that you're doing and what do you need?
Right.
And that's just easy.
Okay.
Or just go and say, hey, I'd like to come and just be here to provide any kind of support that I can.
Okay.
So showing up is step one.
Okay.
Step two is, get educated. Like really pull up some websites. And Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition has a great website. We're working on it, but we have a whole resource section where you can go and read commonly asked questions about human trafficking and learn more about the nuances related to trafficking.
And I just think it's hard because there's a lot of that mentality of, if I don't know about it, it doesn't exist.
Right. And I get that.
It's not in my world, right? And it's a hard matter to hear about. I mean, there's a lot of people who will see the title of this podcast and think, I get it, they're doing great things. I believe that it's a crisis, but I just can't hear about it because it makes me too sad and I don't know what to do to help, which is what I really wanted today to be about. Like, everybody can help do something. And whether it's like educating or keeping your eye out for people or speaking to your boys or kind of like having that awareness, which
is important.
Yes.
Yeah. And, fear often is driven by a lack of knowledge. Not always, but many times it is.
Yeah.
And so in this case, that is absolutely the case. So the more information you have about the industry, how it works, how it operates, that it really is underground. It likes to stay secret. And that's why, again, we're raising awareness so that people can actually understand how it works, how their children might be vulnerable to the industry, and what they can actually do to protect them and provide a covering for them, and then if they're in trouble, where to get help.
Yeah.
Where
I
to
think
get
too,
help.
like keeping it underground, keeping it darkness is what allows that shame to kind of cover everybody who has found themselves in it. And when you're covered in that shame,
Right.
you don't feel like you have a voice to go out and ask for help, or maybe go back home or go back to your parents. So
Yeah, and this is not the day and the age for parents to be judgmental.
yeah.
And there's a difference between judging something and being judgmental. Judging something to say, is this right or wrong, is critical. It is so, so important. Judgment on someone who's struggling is completely wrong. Mm-hmm. And we oftentimes, when we're afraid, especially with our children, we kind of roll into a micro, I'm going to get in there and I'm going to control this. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to manage it. And it doesn't work, unfortunately. So how then can we as parents sort of do side-by-side parenting we talk about and really engage with them in the struggle? I'm in this with you, and let's talk about it.
Is there age-appropriate times when you're introducing the scary world that's out there of human trafficking?
Absolutely. And there are, versions of that you can introduce. And I would say the sooner and the earlier, the better.
Okay.
And that looks like the dignity point of what I was talking about, the value and worth and dignity
of your body.
Really developing in your children a deep sense that everybody you meet has value, worth, and dignity. And it was God-given.
Yeah. And the girls that
how
are
do we
on
celebrate
these
them? Yeah.
pornographic movies
It's not good. Yeah, exactly.
Well, you two, I love your energy together. And when I met you, you're just like two little, like you seem like you're like mother and daughter, like you've known each other your whole lives, or sisters. But did you meet 13 years ago? Or was that later?
No.
'Cause you started this 13 years. So how many years ago did you and Christina meet?
So we met almost 5 years ago.
Okay, 5 years ago. Okay.
But at the same time that I was learning about human trafficking, Christina was having a life-changing experience as well.
Okay, so who wants to tell the story of how you met? Because I think it's a great story. Or how you came to know each other, I should say.
Well, so when she learned about trafficking, I was having an impactful moment with the Lord inside a jail cell.
Yeah, I don't mean to like we're all laughing. We're like, oh, ha, ha, ha. But it's not funny, but
there's a lot of hope.
Yes.
So looking back today and seeing how, because I can't talk about my story without talking about Jesus and my faith. I didn't have that. There's a lot of anger at God. I didn't believe God was real, and if he was, he sure wasn't for me.
Right.
And there was a lot going on there as I grew up as a child. But in about the time that Mary was learning about trafficking, I was learning about hope in a man named Jesus while I was in a jail cell, and been in trafficking for many years. Let's see.
What age did you? If you talk a little bit about
so
for
at
yourself.
15, so the grooming process for me began at 15, and so what that looked like is there was a divorce in the home, and there was abuse in the home already, had been there for years, and then at different levels, and then some addiction in the home as well, and then
with your parents,
with my parents, and then. The divorce happened, and at 15, it rocked my world. I had no idea that this divorce was coming. I had no idea that what I was living in was actually anything bad at all. It was normal for me, everyday life, normal. I had a roof over my head. I was in school. I had clothes on my back. So I had a meal every day. I had no idea that this was not what a normal family looked like. And then when the divorce happened, it rocked my world, and I lost my male covering. My father left the state, and my mom, now working a full-time job, a single, mother, dating, moved into with a boyfriend. They're both working. I had a lot of alone time at 15. And here's where, since I lost that family unit, I began seeking in outside people, in boys, and hanging out with boys, wanting their approval, things like that. Pornography entered the scene. For me, boys were watching pornography. I was wanting that acceptance. The boys were seeing pornography on the screen, and now they were wanting me as, their girlfriend to portray the person they were watching. And so I began in acceptance doing what they were watching.
Did you think anything was wrong with it in the moment? Like when you were doing it, did you think I probably shouldn't be doing this?
Yeah, absolutely. I felt like, but I cared more about being wanted and being loved and accepted, and having someone there, because I had nobody there. When a parent is working all the time and then all that extra time, I was lonely. I had nobody to walk me through a divorce. I was grieving the loss of my father who now moved away, my family unit, everything that was happening. There was a new man on the scene. I had no idea. I'm 15, so I'm walking into I'm puberty, a girl, all these things. My body's doing all these things and nobody really be able to spend any time with me. The school system, I began becoming a problem instead of the community rallying around me and my mom through this divorce or the school system noticing a problem. Instead, the solution was to get me out of the way, away from the kids who were doing good. Instead of coming around me saying, how can we shore her up? What can we do to help? It was more get the problem child away from my children because I don't want that to bleed into my family. So I found a family unit in the boys, and it was like, okay, I had acceptance.
Who were the boys, though?
I mean, it was just a group of boys.
From school?
From school,
okay.
Yeah, 15 years old.
Okay.
We were all hanging out. But now those boys that I was going from one boy to the next because now I'm having sex. So 15 and 16-year-old boys, they're wanting their turn. And I'm going from boy to boy to boy. And it was like for acceptance. And they're watching porn. I'm acting out porn. I'm being desensitized. Well, now there's an older group of kids that are hanging out with the 15 and 16-year-old boys who are in school.
Just from like your town?
From our town,
okay.
Yes, from here in Nashville. And so now and that's where the grooming began for me. The team, it was a girlfriend and boyfriend team who were into substances, was into trafficking.
And how old would they have been?
They were 23.
Okay.
And I was 15. So those two as that team, now they're my family. They're wanting me to move in with them. I've got a woman, I've got a friend, and I think I'm cool because I got these older people wanting to hang out with me now. And, and that's what every 15-year-old is. I want to hang out with the older kids. I want to be an adult, and I think I can be an adult and things like that. And I think are cool. Dabbling with drugs. And by 17 years old, that grooming process, by 17 years old, now I, through them, was introduced to my first abuser, and who then began the brainwashing and the breaking down process, which I had.
Is your abuser a trafficker?
No, he was just an abuser at that time. But that abuser led me vulnerable to now a trafficker that would actually come in when that abuser who had broke me down and brought me all the way down to nothing.
An abuse, like physical, emotional?
Physical, everything that you think of, sexual, physical, all of that at 17.
Okay.
Everything.
And mental.
And mental. Yeah, and completely. And then he went to jail. And when he was gone to jail, that is when the traffickers actually were able to come in and take me from where he was and introduce me into the sex trafficking industry. So that grooming process with those people that at 15 years old, they invested time.
Yeah, that was
4 years of time they invested. And at 19 years old, with them on the side, I was now introduced to the sex trafficking industry.
So you were 22?
19. I was 19. 19. When I was, now I had little instances along the way that led me into that, but it wasn't full-blown sex trafficking. I had already negotiated a price for my body at 15, at 17, little times along the way, but not fully immersed into the sex trafficking and prostitution until I was 19 and became an actual sex worker.
So at 19, you become a sex worker and you are in love with your trafficker?
I am in love with
He's your boyfriend?
Yep.
Okay. And he says you're his girlfriend?
Yep. And we're in a relationship and we're getting money together and it's a party. I'm going to parties. I'm riding around in limousines at 19 years old. I have everything you could possibly think of, all the money you could think of. I've got men paying Ubers amounts of money. Like it's money is falling out of the sky. And
so what does the conversation, sorry to interrupt you, but what does the conversation look like? Like you are now, like when you talk about being in the sex trafficking industry, what does the conversation look like between you and him? You think he's your boyfriend. He said you're his girlfriend. What does that conversation look like when he says he needs you to start sleeping with other men for money?
Well, he kind of just gradually, it wasn't him who got me started. It was the female. Other females were doing it. Okay. And so, and that's a very, a trick that the traffickers use. They use other women. So to finesse you and with the money, the glamour, the glitz and the glamour, these girls have all these things. They're doing all this stuff and it's easy for her. And I went with her. My first actual quote unquote sex work date was with another woman, 2 girls with 1 guy. And she did all the negotiating. She did all the things. She got all the money. And I was just there and trained me and showed me what that was like. And I was like, wow, this is easy. This was, and it felt safe. I'd already been doing it for free. And and that was like, okay, I'm doing this for free and I could be making this money. And she's encouraging me and showing me the ropes and things like that. And, before you know it, I'm off and zipping on my own. And we're a team. Now we're a team and we're a family. So it's built a family around me that I'm not understanding that this is trafficking at all.
What did you think it was?
I thought, I'm just thinking we're getting money.
Okay.
We're getting money and we're partying. Yeah. And that's how it's presented.
Because are you addicted by this point?
No, not addicted by this point.
Okay.
No, that comes later, and the more substances you're adding to the party and the more often you're doing it, before you know it, there becomes a physical dependency. Your body is dependent on it. And before you know it, then you're addicted. But I was able to stop and go at this time on my own. Stop using drugs, just going, hanging out, going back home. Parents not really knowing what's going on. I'm having freedom to come and go. My mom and
what did your mom think you were doing?
Oh, she thought I was she thought I was just partying. I was hanging out. I was going, I had a regular job on the side through this grooming thing, as well as what was going on in the partying. So there was a lot of multifaceted into it until they could actually pluck me out of my family home. And now I'm off and running with them. And it has become a lifestyle. And I've left home at 17 and walked completely into this.
Did you because you said 25 years, right? You were in it? Along those 25 years, were there points in time where you thought, this is not what I was meant to do, this is not right, I should try to get out? Well,
so that's a part where the God came in, and will lead up to where I ended up while she was learning about trafficking, and I was learning about the Lord. So through this time, here I am thinking, God, if this is what I was created for, this sucks.
Yeah.
This life, this is what life is. This is awful. I don't want no part of it.
So you were aware of that?
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. But what I was really aware of more was a substance abuse issue.
Oh, okay.
I didn't understand that trauma. I didn't understand trauma bonding. I didn't understand brainwashing. I'm truly believing I'm in relationships with people. And this is what a relationship looks like. I'm not understanding what exactly I have fallen into.
Did he have other, girlfriends or?
Yeah, there were other women around, but he loved me the most.
That was what you thought?
Yeah, that's what I thought, and they were just helping us get money, and I was better because I was younger, prettier, I was making more money than they were, and they were just contributing to the team, and he loved me the most. And I would work harder for him to get his attention throughout that way. And then, along the lines, here I am taking charges. So now you've got criminal activity, you got sex trafficking, drug trafficking hand in hand. So now we're selling drugs at the same time we're selling services. So you sell a whole party together. I'm taking charges for my trafficker. I'm going to jail. I'm in and out of the system.
Wow.
Now I'm recognizing I have a substance abuse problem. I'm addicted and I can't stop using the drugs. So now my money is going out the window. He's taking all my money. I'm not saving money anymore.
Yeah.
Now, I don't have clothes anymore and I don't have the cars anymore. And now he's taking everything, so it was a progression and he is controlling my every move. And now I have this horrendous drug problem. Now I just want to get free of the substances. So I'm going in and out of treatment facilities, leaving the trafficker to go get.
Is he fine with you going to treatment?
He is fine. He's fine with me going to treatment because now I've become a problem and my drug habit is costing him money. But he's wanting me to come back.
Right.
So he's wanting me to get sober.
He doesn't want you to cost as much.
He doesn't want me to cost as much. So I'm going to treatment time and time again to get off the substances, going back. I'm being passed from one trafficker to another. I get tired of him taking all my money. I have another trafficker telling me I can keep more of the money and he's going to do more for me. So I bounce from one to the next. End up in and out of jail. I end up in prison. at one point, and violence is coming out of me, anger. I'm realizing I'm in a pit of despair.
How old are you at this point now?
25.
Okay.
I was 25 at this point. I'm in a pit of despair, of drugs and of sex, men, hating men. I've turned into this very violent, angry person, and I'm taking it out on anybody around. And, the traffickers love it because they can pit one girl against the next girl. And, and if somebody's not doing something they're supposed to be doing, I'm going to get beat because of it. So, and there's just a lot of anger. So I'm getting violent. I'm taking charges. I end up in prison for, for my traffickers because of an assault and, because of different criminal activities that are going on. I go to prison believing, I'm all alone. I'm broken. I'm in this place of brokenness, and there's no God. There's no help. Get out of prison. I spent 8 months on maximum security because I'm violent inside. I take this violence from the streets and this gangster lifestyle mentality. I take it into the prison. Okay. Become very violent in there. They lock me up.
It's like I'm looking at you right now, like turned around, but it's like I look at you, you're just like you're so like just pretty, and you're just like so sweet and angelic looking, and you're talking to me about your gangster life of violence, and I'm like just having such this hard time of visioning you. But I think that's the thing. It's like you never know what you're seeing on somebody, what's really going on the inside.
And so that's where I'm trying to reach out to God. I get a hold of this Bible, and it's the King James Version. I don't know if anybody's ever tried to read a King James Version Bible for their first encounter with God. I was like, if this is what I need to do in order to have to talk to God or be a Christian.
Was this when you were in prison?
When I was in prison. And then, I get out of prison, no skills, no nothing. It's like I end up right back into it,
Because where else were you going to go?
But I still don't understand that what I have is a, trauma from earlier. I still think I just need to stay away from drugs. I'm not understanding that men are a problem and sex is a problem. Okay. And now I've been years into this now. I get out, I'm 30 years old. I end up right back into it. A relapse happens. Now I've got to get money. The only way I know how to get money is by my body. And then I go in, get wrapped up in this again, go in and out, marry the trafficker that I took the charges for before prison. Okay. He comes back in my life. He loves me and, got this big design, this ride or die mentality, this gangster mentality that, we're meant to be and we're going to get money together again. And, God brought him back into my life and we're going to do it right this time. And within a matter of days, I'm back into the lifestyle of prostitution again for him. We get married. I know he really loves me now, because we're married. And I end up back in jail. And this is when I get a hold of a New Living Translation Bible. I get in trouble again. I like to not only go to jail, I go to jail inside the jail. So,
What do you have to do to go to jail inside the jail? Violence?
Violence. You have to break procedures. I was smuggling in contraband at this time. For the violence was the first time. This time, I was smuggling in contraband. So they put me on a 10-day solitary confinement lockdown, and they give me a New Living Translation Bible.
When you found it. Okay.
And that's where, the scales fell off. I understood cover to cover. I had this radical encounter with Jesus. Yeah. As Spirit moved, opened my eyes to see that everybody in Scripture was crazy misfits. They were sinners in need of a Savior. And so I had learned about the Lord. And then I was looking for that, come out of jail, go back into the lifestyle. Nothing worse for business than somebody who's born again, who is now going back into the sex trafficking industry, who has Jesus on her heart. So I'm exchanging a price for sex, and I'm talking about Jesus. And, the guys are like, Christina, please stop talking about Jesus. And I'm trying to tell them that, what we're doing is wrong and what I'm doing is wrong, and that there is a different way of living. And it took me 6 years. And that's when I met Mary Trapnell, and I had got with another trafficker, suffered another brutal assault, ended up in the emergency room, knew I needed to go for a substance abuse issue to treatment one more time, hit my knees, asked God to make it easy for me. I went to treatment, got out of treatment, went to a sober living community, went to a meeting where there was another survivor at the meeting. And asked her to be my sponsor. So doing recovery work, because I have a substance abuse disorder, you need to do Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous, work of 12 steps. You need a sponsor, go to meetings, get a home group, these type of things. So I asked a woman to be my sponsor. It was in this relationship of another survivor who'd been where I'd been, who educated me on what human trafficking was and that it was not snatch or grab, because I had no idea I was a victim. And if you'd have told me I was a victim, I'd told you I'm a victim of nothing. Everything that ever happened to me, I knew the consequences for walking into it. Every deal I made with a man, I knew it could cost me my life. I knew I could get raped. I knew I could die. I knew that I was meeting a stranger and what could happen in that room. And I fully accepted it as maybe a consequence of the choices I made. And if I got out of it, it was a good day. And if I didn't, I knew what was going. I walked into that knowing that. After talking with her and understanding what trafficking was, what the grooming process was, what brainwashing was, she brought me to an event that the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition was hosting. And that is where I walked into this place in my three-piece business suit and my high-heel stiletto black shoes, and was like, I'm going to walk into this with my dignity and my pride, because I know that they know I have a substance abuse problem and I used to be a prostitute. And so I'm walking into this place and I had my guard up. But when I got in there and those ladies were circled up, and Mary Trapnell was there, and we were all holding hands, and there were some people with no shoes on, and my feet were killing me. Again, I'm in these shoes, and
dressed to impress.
And they tell me, if your feet are hurting, you take your shoes off. And I look around and I see these people, and we're gathering to pray. I felt at home. I felt like that it wasn't about, my addiction or about the prostitution. It was really a safe place. My first point of vulnerability was I took my shoes off and we circled up and prayed. And that is where I met Mary, where after she had already built NAHT and understand, trafficking and, what all led up to that. And what I can tell you is at that event, NAHT not only gave me education and awareness about trafficking, but they gave me something full of light and hope to turn from. Because when you turn from something as dark and as heinous as trafficking, drug trafficking and abuse and sex trafficking and all the stuff for all those years of my life, for 26 years, I needed something full of life, hope, and healing. And that is what NAHT gave to me.
Mary, tell me about the NAHT, because Christina's talking about when she got there, and I probably know the room you're talking about from when I did the tour. I guess this is a new center.
This was before we have the building.
So when a woman comes to you, like Christina came to you, I can't remember how many there were, 5 or 7, the R's. Will you talk a little bit about like the process that they go through? Because what I think is also so great about your organization is you don't just get them out of a bad space and then you're like, well, good luck to you. Like you are ride or die. You are there until they, you're holding their hand until they don't need it anymore, which is really like that full circle of serving and helping. So can you just share a little bit about like what happens when a woman gets to your center? Number one, is she receiving your help often? Like, is she like, I'm so happy to be here, or is she more often reluctant to be there?
So, like Christina said, if somebody had told her that she was a victim of human trafficking or she was a victim in any sort of, at all of anything, right? Yeah. She would have said, absolutely not. So I can tell you that like 99% of the women that do come into the building, even as a victim of human trafficking, do not think that that's the case. They have been so brainwashed that these people loved them, and that if anybody was doing something wrong, it was them. They fully accept 100% responsibility. So absolutely. So,
so if they're if
it's
if they don't believe that they have done anything wrong or things wrong, how are they getting to? Is someone usually bringing them, or is it the police, or how are you usually getting these women at your center?
So we have several different things, and I'll tell you, there are 4 R's that primarily define a journey of a victim. Okay. One of which is rescue and intervention work. So
and that's what you're doing.
We do that. That's one of the R's. That's the first step. And that is providing services and connection through survivor-informed and survivor-led intervention work with women who are actively being trafficked and are dealing typically with addiction.
Okay. And how do you use, like when I met you that day, you guys were if someone was getting ready to get on a plane that night or the next day to go and get someone, how are you even hearing about these women to know where to go to rescue them from?
Yeah. So, I've been in this space for 10 years and the network of survivors and thrivers that we have as a part of NAHT is pretty massive.
Okay.
So we have relationships with other agencies. We know lots of people in law enforcement. We are involved with the government.
Okay.
We have lots of families that now know who we are and what we do that will reach out. We have pastors, we have counselors.
Okay. That just know of things someone might be in a bad situation.
Yes,
because you go all over the country. This is not just
We go
Nashville.
all over the country.
Okay.
We do both inbound and outbound rescue work and intervention work. Okay. But it's not a snatch and grab story for us. It is really a victim at some point having kind of a little bit of a moment, like Christina defined, of like, you know what? I'm tired of being beaten up. Okay. I'm tired of wondering if this is going to be a rape and I'm going to come out alive. My body is tired. I am tired. I can't keep this up. And when that happens, if someone knows them, and it could be another person actually in the trap house, it could be someone in recovery that has known someone, it could be a mom, it could be an aunt, it could be a sibling, it could be a policeman who might call and say, I think this girl wants help. And when that happens, then we look at the best way to engage with her. And it's always going to be from a victim, someone who has been in that position.
Because you have a lot of women that work for you who were victims. Okay.
Exactly. And so they reach out and make connection and are able to immediately kind of talk about things that you and I could not talk about. Right. And there is an ability for them to kind of get under the radar, if you will, in their heart and mind and really talk straight with the girls and at the same time inspire some hope. Because they're now on the other side of this, and they're saying, if God can do it in and through me, he can do it in and through you. Okay. And we're here for you. We're going to do everything you need. Yeah. So that is we're really, really good at what we do. Yeah. And it's the model. It's survivor-informed, survivor-led intervention work. And it's the one place on the rescue side, especially domestically here in the States, that is very, very important, and it's very effective. Okay, so that's step one. Okay. All right. And so those girls, though, if they are rescued in, say, Nashville, where we are located, then it may be that their trafficker and that world is here in Nashville and they need to get out of state. They need to be at a different place. So we partner with agencies across the nation, really.
And you would send them there, so they're away.
Absolutely. Okay. And we're probably going to send you to detox and rehab. Okay. If you finish that program, we're going to help you find a residential program or place where you can be housed. We do all of that work for you. We help you, kind of navigate through the insurance piece of what's going on. Do you have insurance? Or don't you? Okay. And so we provide...
For the rehab.
Yeah, and we find grants, and we have relationships with a lot of agencies that hold beds for us. Okay. So it's a beautiful, beautiful ministry and a big piece that Christina leads for us. Okay. And then we have Restore. So everybody wants to talk about recidivism. And, Christina talks about coming out of jail and quickly getting back into the industry.
Because where else are you going?
Where else are you going to go? Yeah. And you don't really have the skill set. I mean, she's been sitting in a cell for a long time, but has anybody been investing and building into her? And fortunately now there are a lot of programs that do work on the inside, which is critical and so, so important. But let's say now they're out and they are sober and they need support. And so we provide a hope-filled community with a full suite of wraparound services. And they're so rich and so wonderful that a lot of my friends are like, Mary, I want to be a member of NAHT.
Like what services are you talking about? Like the drivers or like what services
we'll help
are you?
With, we'll definitely make sure you have transportation to get to the primary things you need done. But most importantly, we're going to make sure that you've got a sponsor and you're supported in your recovery process. Whatever that looks like. Maybe it's drugs and alcohol. Maybe it's food. Maybe it's relationships. Relationships is a big piece of recovery. I'm hooked on people. Okay. And so we'll address that in a way that makes sense for you and helps you. We're going to introduce you to people that maybe don't struggle that way, but that are humble and broken and understand it's level at the foot of the cross. And they're just going to show up like we talked about earlier. What can you do? Just show up and be a friend. And so we'll provide you with some friend relationships, like just people that care about you. And if it's your birthday, they're going to call and say, hey, happy birthday.
Yes.
And
just to make you feel something some sort of connection.
Just a relationship. Yeah. So we support you in your recovery. We're going to help you kind of understand that core unit that was vulnerable, right? Where did all of this start and where did this begin? And we're going to help shore women up. And then, ultimately, there's several different other strategic people that we place in a survivor's life, and one of which is a financial planner.
Yeah. Well, Christina and I were talking about, she said you bought too many Air Jordans?
Air Jordans. So every time.
And she was.
And so the Restore program ultimately is what catapulted me into where I am today.
Okay.
And NAHT saved my life. The Lord absolutely used Mary Trapnell and the relationship we have and the way that God gave me a mom. Gave someone who could pour into me, and could teach me what it looks like to be, a woman who has value, worth, and dignity, and to walk into that and to use skills honed in the furnace of affliction that are applicable to the work that we do in everyday life, out here building an empire. I was a hustler. I was filling many jobs. I could do many roles. I could be whoever you wanted me to be. That applies to everyday life. So the Restore program ultimately saved my life. Mary Trapnell and the work that she has walked through, she's part of my wraparound team. Yeah. Not just, and my mother, and rebuilt a mother wound. It healed a mother wound where I had, and then going through that, and the sponsor walking through the steps and doing the work that she's talking about doing, what led me vulnerable to trafficking to begin with. And, and it really changes the women's lives. The lights come on and they walk into freedom with this wraparound team. The financial advisor who was helping me to not buy every pair of Jordans that dropped. I was able, because I didn't believe I could save any money. I thought I would always be a paycheck to paycheck person. And now you're telling me I need to have buckets and I need to have, 3 times what I make in a month and things like that. These savings account, I never thought that was possible. And to be honest with the budget and this wraparound team and this comprehensive Restore program is changing lives. It saved my life. I impacted my children, and it's changing the lives of the women that we serve. This wraparound team that she's talking about, all the way up into leadership. Now that we've gone through the healing, we have thrivers on staff that can take their story, the darkness that they've been through, and go and now that they're in the light, take that light that they now have and go back to where they came from. Yeah. And bring light into the darkness.
Back into their families?
Into the trafficking world. We've been delivered from the trafficking world. Now you're asking us to go back into it?
Yeah.
That's unheard of. But at NAHT, with this Restore, program and the way that it shores up is exactly how what NAHT is doing. Mary Trapnell on the board has really honed into to impact recidivism, really to stop us from going back and to be a thriver in the community.
Yeah, yeah. And so we're an empowerment program. Yeah. And what we talk a lot about is that, what the world and what this trafficking industry meant for evil, God is going to use for good and for the saving of many. And what most of the women, once they do kind of get buoyant and alive and kind of filled up.
I like that term buoyant. Because you probably felt like you were just treading water for so long. Yeah.
Exactly. And then all of a sudden you want to go back. You want to give back. And so we were watching that and we're like, okay, how and what would that look like? So one of the things that they then wanted to do was come to work for me.
Yeah. So and you have a lot of people that work for you now.
Yes, we have.
Well, even when I came and Christina was like, come on, tell her your story. And I was like, it's okay. And she's like, no, she'd love to tell you. I was like,
there
okay.
You go.
Yeah. So, we have 7 right now thrivers on staff.
Okay.
We would love to have twice that.
Yeah.
And so we formed a social enterprise called Sweet Daisy. It's a bakery.
Yes, I've had the pettifores. They're delicious.
We make these little bitty pettifores, small cakes that are glazed and they have lots of sugar and they're really, really good. Yeah. And Katie Mishner, who has been doing this for 15 years, joined our team, brought all of our business our way, and they're beautiful. They're always decorated. Yeah. So we're also seeing that it is being used as a marketing tool for us and for this raising awareness You know,
and I think she was saying to me that day when I was in there that it also like helps the women who she has working for her learn how to like do certain skills and hold a job and how to do customer service, like to go out maybe into the real world and hold a job versus what they were doing.
Yeah, and like Christina will tell you, the industry, the trafficking industry is just boom, 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 boom. They're so wound up when they come in.
Absolutely.
And so the process of kind of de-escalating and then learning how to regulate your own body is a big deal. And so being in a kitchen with
it's like
someone
therapeutic,
safe,
absolutely.
And
she's so sweet and soft-spoken.
And she's the exact opposite of me. You know,
you are sweet and soft-spoken. Yeah.
No, I don't know. I can get pretty fired up. But anyway, she is really in that kitchen setting. You think about it, right?
Yeah.
It's safe. It smells good.
Yes.
And then the women are actually getting to
so,
deliver
like,
the
very
pedophores.
decorated, very beautifully.
And it's
like a nice
detail,
space.
and you've got to slow down to do all of that. And so on many levels, it's healing for the women. And then we're raising awareness. And it's a great place for people who want to do something to, you know, hey, we buy pedophores from Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking.
Do you see, if you had your crystal ball and saw 5, 10, 50 years down the line, do you see an end to human trafficking?
Do I see an end to it? I don't. I don't think it will. And so that's even more why educate to recognize, which is our last R, is critical.
Yes.
It is, you know, we are targeting middle and high school students.
Yeah, you go
their
into
families,
schools and you speak,
exactly, to raise awareness and to equip people to know how to deal with this issue.
Okay.
And it gets back to, and I think Christina would tell you this, you know, everybody wants to take it and make it super complicated, but it's really simple. And we've got to get back to that there is a God, and he created everyone that you see in his image, and they have value, worth, and dignity. And it's not okay to buy and sell and barter with people for your own sake and your own benefit. In fact, God says, what? Love me and then love others. And what does love look like? And so, you know, we get the joy of and restore and really even in rescue every level of what we're doing. It's talking about how, you know, Christina, you're made in the image of God. And, you know, you have been fearfully and wonderfully made and fashioned by him. And she's stunning. She's gorgeous.
I know. Look at her.
You know, but underneath that is a message that, you know, I don't measure up. I'm not enough. I'm not okay. And if the voices like mine are not saying, oh, yes, you are. Let me tell you what the real truth is about who you are, then she's going to obviously go and seek that confirmation, that affirmation from sources that maybe are not there. They want to exploit instead of care for her.
If somebody, whether it's a mom or a grandma or an aunt, becomes aware of someone, or even, you know, maybe they see the same girl, I don't know, outside of the same store every day on the way to work. And, you know, it's really easy to be like, it's not my problem. I don't want to get involved. What if it's not a problem? I don't want to overstep. Because that's what I would love to also come away with today is like practical, real world. I mean, you are both so boots on the ground. You're on planes and cars and doing all these things. But for the regular woman who's just driving to work, or the regular man, if you become aware of somebody in this that you maybe think is the problem or like the situation, what do we do? Like, what is the best thing for someone to do?
So you're doing it right now.
Okay.
You're using your platform.
Okay.
Thank
All right.
you.
I'm good.
Thank you.
No.
You are.
No.
To invite this story into your audience so that they can learn and they can understand more. That's big. Use the platform that you have to raise awareness and partner with other people to do that. Secondly, I would say just remember, you know, smiling
At someone.
Yeah, making eye contact. Maybe just saddling up next to him and saying, how are you?
Right.
Are you okay? Is there anything I can do to help? And what I do know is that the thousands of victims that I have interviewed, they always go back and reference those moments.
Where someone was smiling
Was
at
just
them?
kind. Maybe showed some interest in them. That had a positive word to speak over them. Maybe even said, is there something I can do to help? That wasn't judgmental. Judging possibly, but not judgmental and condemning the person, but really wanted to kind of seek to help them. And then thirdly, I would say super, super important is find those agencies that are boots on the ground, that are doing this work.
And maybe calling them and saying, there's someone I've been worrying about. I see her all the time.
Absolutely.
Is it a mistake for you to try to intervene or call the police? Like, was that often end badly? Like, because you were saying that usually they won't come to you, they'll always go back to the trafficker.
Yeah. And so what Christina did a great job in doing and explaining is that it really ultimately, even though physical violence is a part of this industry and it's a huge part of the industry, it's really a mental.
Okay.
It is something
They're so
where you
mentally
are
addicted to the trafficker.
Oh, my goodness. And yeah, there's a lot of brainwashing that goes in. And just like in an abused wife setting where people say, why didn't you leave that man? He was so mean to you. Why didn't you leave? It's the same principle in the human trafficking industry. At some point, she has decided that either she's not good enough to leave, no one will ever really love her, maybe he does, and I'd rather stay here than risk leaving. And with the threat of what in the world would I do if I did leave?
Yeah.
I'm now just a prostitute. I'm just a whore. I'm a junkie. I'm used. I'm baggage. You know, I don't have a hope there, so I'll just stay in this really hard situation. And so what we say is that if I don't have to chain your body if I've chained your mind.
Absolutely.
And so you'll go back, and they'll go back, and they go back, and they go back, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I truly believed that's all I was ever going to be. I did not have any hope. I never thought I was going to be anything other than a felon, a junkie, and a prostitute. That was what my life was going to be. And if I was going to be that, I was going to be the best that there was out there, and walked into that until I met NAHT, and they truly poured in and took the time to be intentional and to help me to see my value and my worth. Because, I had a lot of anger at God, to really helping me and to earn the right to extend the embrace of Christ. It's not a requirement at NAHT to love Jesus. In fact, 90% of the people that we serve are angry at God, or, are Wiccan or whatever. It's just give us the girls, and if you will allow us the honor to introduce you to Jesus, and, and what that meant, to break that brainwashing, that acceptance of this is all I'm ever going to be. I was 41. I didn't think I could ever do anything what I'm doing. I didn't think I was going to be, a director of anything except a director of a prison, inside Unit 1, something, at the prison, it was like, I never believed I was ever going to be anything other than what I was. And walking into NAHT and the intentional time and the hope and the boots on the ground and all the things that this organization represents really was a game changer into breaking what I thought could never be broken.
Yeah. So what we do a lot, like with Christina, who is brilliant, and you can go ahead and say that you're going to be on Team Christina because she will run for president.
Yeah. So I think she might win too. With all her street smarts.
Absolutely. She's going to be the people's president. That's for sure. And but anyway, you had these experiences that are very difficult, very hard, very challenging. And so you look at a victim of human trafficking, you say, how could she ever, ever, ever really recover? And it's beautiful because what we do a lot at NAHT is look at, okay, well, Christina, have you ever put a trap house together before? Oh yeah, man, I did. And well, what did you do? Well, I made sure it was the best trap house on the in the city. And when people came in, they never wanted to leave. That is an area where you trap people, you bring them in to buy. Yeah, the women typically live in a trap house, and the drugs are it's kind of the headquarters, if you will. And then you're deployed and go out from the trap house. But the trafficker is there with his women, typically.
I would be so bold to say that a recent musician's homes were trap houses.
Yes, I know.
That is on the girls, the money, the drugs, the party, everything is in that place. So you want to make it the best it can be so the money stays there.
Okay.
They don't want to leave.
Gotcha.
They want to stay there. They want to keep spending. So you're trapping. You're getting the money.
The trap house.
And so you want to set it up to where you have everything that someone's going to need, a consumer is going to buy. You want to have everything there in that one spot so they don't have to leave.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, I'm talking about starting a safe, having a safe house for the women after we rescue them. And I'm like, hey, Christina, I need you to put together this not trap house.
Yes. Safe house.
Put together the safe house. And she's like, oh, I can't do that. I can't do that. I said, oh, yes, you can. Yes, you can. So we borrow from the past. And I'm like, have you put a trap house together? Oh, yeah, I know how to do that. I said, okay, can you do that? Same thing, but do it as a safe house so that we can actually trap victims and bring them in, but love on them. Okay. And so within a month, imagine that, she recruited lots of volunteers and we had the cutest and the best safe house ever. Absolutely. But that's a story of where the skills that she honed on the streets can absolutely be used by a redemptive God to do amazing things. And so we're an empowerment program. We want to see the girls not just survive, but thrive.
And the work we're doing.
Big difference.
And the work we're doing with the thrivers and in that. So NAHT's rescue program has been, the Lord has shown so much favor that we've done, over 230 rescues in 3 years. We have shut down that safe house because it was a temporary place where they would go until we could get them into treatment. And today our intervention services, we didn't need it anymore. We are able to
right into treatment.
Can get them straight into treatment within a matter of hours.
Wow.
We're partnerships, with Freedom Aviation, we're able to take, a group of volunteer pilots have come together. They have an organization where they will now fly to get a victim and bring her to treatment. There are resources, abundant resources through NAHT that we're able to do this work and do it effectively and no longer needed that trap house and able to, 80% of the treatment facilities that we partner with actually went to. So we know what it looks like in, what the girls are going to be a part of and, and walking them from victims to survivor, thriver. It's I don't know, it's been a beautiful, it's just a beautiful work in the Lord to be able to say that we took their safe house and now no longer needed it and are able to get help for victims like
even faster.
Mm-hmm.
So we quarterback care. So we bring you in and do a good assessment and decide what is your best program. And we partner with agencies, like I said, across the city, across Middle Tennessee, across the state, and outside of the state, actually. So,
and give a victim everything she needs. Hygiene, clothing. She can leave with nothing but the clothes on her back. We've got her. When NAHT says we've got you, not only do we give them everything that they need, down to a toothbrush holder and a soap dish, we have a Letters of Hope program that writes the ladies a pen pal relationship for the entirety of their stay. We're communicating the whole time that they're in treatment. We'll place them once they get out of treatment. We pay their first week's rent, their deposit into a place. We'll get them in a long-term trauma program and we walk alongside them through that. Then they can come be a part of our Restore program, and launch them out in the world. Like we meet every facet of trafficking, from the children, middle schoolers and high schoolers, all the way to resourcing them and bringing leaders into the community that can go back into the darkness and bring out other victims.
Christina, I'm going to end with this question for you. What would you say to, I always say women, but because I don't know if any men actually listen to this, but I'll just say women or men. What would you say to them who have maybe seen a sex worker on the side of the road, standing on a corner, or, caught someone in their family viewing pornography, and they look at that woman who's either in the film or standing on the corner and kind of cast that judgment of, well, she's made terrible choices in her life, like, I would never be like that, or just have a really negative opinion of her. What would you want them to know about who's actually standing on that corner or on the TV screen?
Well, I mean, I feel like one, that's somebody's daughter, somebody's sister, somebody's mother, somebody's friend, that prostitution is the choice of the choiceless, and that there was probably be only a one thing in your life that could have happened would have put you right where they are. So, and remember that, that it could have been just one thing. It could have been at any point in time that you were vulnerable to it, and by God's grace, you avoided it, and that you are so not very far from that person on the side of the street or in that video, and that you have a place of brokenness too, and that they just want you to see them.
Yeah.
They just want someone to see them, to care, and that they are a person, and they do not want to be there. Well, they really did have.
But they
hopes
don't want to
and
be there. I think is the biggest
be
takeaway. They don't want to be in that video. They don't want to be standing on that corner and you staring at your car.
That is not who they hoped and dreamed they would be as a small child.
Yeah, probably their parents didn't either.
No.
Yeah. Well, you two are just like the dynamic duo, and you're just out there like, I just feel like you're just saving one woman at a time. And I'm so glad that you shared your story, and everyone can follow you on your Instagram and your social medias and kind of figure out a way if they want to get involved or donate or volunteer. And I'm just so thankful you guys were here today to share your story. Maybe we'll have you back and get an update.
That'd be great. Thanks, Jen, and thanks again for using your platform to raise awareness.
Of course.
You're going to make impact.
So thanks, guys.